Howdy, Mark, team. Thank you for taking your time. I'm Jack Dean. I'm joined here with Carson Gaylord, Eli Diamond. We're at the practice at Dean Diamond and Gaylord. We really work at the intersection of technology transformation and organizational health, which is a long way of saying that we get called when the company strategy is working, but the people aren't. You brought us in to look at your agent force transition, and we wouldn't be upfront. We came back with something that's a little broader than a brief, and we'd like this to be more of a conversation than a presentation. So please stop us if you have any questions. First thing we're going to start off with is the paradox that we're really seeing here, because it's something we can't really reconcile. Last fiscal year, Salesforce generated more revenue per employee than at any other point in company history, almost $500,000 per employee. By any operating measure, that is the most efficient this company has ever been. But in the same window, the stock dropped by 30%, and it's the worst performer in the Dow, on top of a 24% decline the year before. And that's with $11 billion in quarterly revenue and an earnings beat. So you're being more productive than ever, and you're being valued less for it. When we started, we assumed that this was just a communications problem with Wall Street, that they weren't seeing something. But instead, we think that the market's pricing in something that we're not seeing in the balance sheet. And we've spent the last few weeks trying to figure out what that is. Now, here's the 4-year picture. 2023, about 79,000 people. The restructuring took you down to 73. And then you rebuild up to the 83,000 you are today. And I want to be precise about something, because I think it's the most misunderstood number in the story. Headcount is at an all-time high, higher than before any of the AI-driven reductions. Salesforce did not shrink. Salesforce just simply reallocated their workforce. Now, that matters because the conventional narrative is that AI came in and that the jobs went away. But that's not what happened here. Some support roles were eliminated, but the company still grew in net. So if the story is simply a job loss, we'd expect to see it in the numbers, and we don't, which raises a harder question, and the one that we're really here to talk about. What happens to a culture when nobody loses their job on aggregate, but entire function itself gets dissolved? That's not what shows up on the balance sheet. That shows up somewhere else. And Carson's going to take us there.
Yeah, so a large part of the Salesforce company is the corporate culture, which they kind of call it Ohana, which is essentially that they treat their customers, their employees, their shareholders, kind of everybody involved with the company with respect, that they're like a family. So that is a very strong corporate culture. And kind of with this implementation of AI, we are going to be talking about, Eli is going to be talking about how this AI kind of affects that corporate culture and how you may not be seeing this on the balance sheets, like Jack said, but this may be affecting other parts of the company which are factored into that Dow aspect.
Thank you for that, Carson. Yes, my name is Eli. I am our AI and technology lead, and I'm going to work you through the artificial intelligence impact that I've been noticing through my research. So for a start here, we can see this bar graph showing the layoffs as compared to our AI-focused hiring. As you can notice, it stays pretty consistent with a rise in the AI-focused hiring in 2024 and a large spike in layoffs in 2023. Now, one thing to note is that part of these layoffs, I know, were part of the COVID overhiring, and then as a result, you had to make some large layoffs. But in 2023, the also important thing to note is the introduction of the Einstein GPT from Salesforce. And this is what led to almost half of those other layoffs, was the switch to AI. And this brings a huge impact down on the corporate culture, because not only are people starting to notice that their jobs are being replaced by AI, but they're also noticing that their coworkers who are doing the same role as them are no longer here. So they're worried about their job security as well.
Yeah.
And then, you want to say something, Jack?
I was just going to add that what really makes this different from the restructuring that happened in 2023 was everyone understood the cause and the market corrected. But here it's because of a product that the company itself is choosing to sell. And that's a much stranger thing for an employee to metabolize when they get fired for.
Yes.
Of course. And then the last other thing I wanted to mention was 2024 was the introduction of the agent force, which we'll talk about in more detail later on. And along with the agent force, it was announced by the company that you put forward the message that AI was going to have a huge impact on the hiring plans for the company. And we see this with the rise in the AI focused hiring, but we also see this in the corporate culture because people are now noticing, hey, my job isn't safe because AI is going to be the reason that new employees work here and old employees leave.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of want to add to that, kind of what Eli said, but something that I'll talk about more in the slides coming is that uh, replacing people with AI, and even if people think they may not be replaceable or their job may be replaceable, that is a large hit to that corporate culture, especially when they're focusing on that Ohana corporate culture, family corporate culture, and they just need to be able to communicate what they're trying to do with AI going forward. Which kind of leads me into the first external issue, the capital market pressure. So Salesforce is no longer being judged simply on how fast they can grow. Investors are seeing that profitable growth, but they want that profitable growth to be very efficient. They want your AI to be proven that it can make your company more efficient rather than just being implemented. These numbers at the top, Salesforce generated about 41.5 billion dollars in revenue, which was roughly up 10% from last year. And at the same time, the company returned $14.3 billion dollars to their shareholders. So financially, Salesforce is showing very strong efficiency, but the external pressure is that the market still wants proof that these investments in your AI, especially Agentforce, will create this long-term growth and long-term efficiency. In reaction, management has responded by cutting some of these support positions, as we saw in that hiring chart that Eli was showing, and becoming more selective with this hiring by using AI to increase your productivity. However, the main leadership risk is how this is communicated to the employees. Um, when the employees hear language like less heads or that their jobs may be cut or that people doing very similar positions are being cut, that can damage the trust and conflict with Salesforce's Ohana culture, which is supposed to emphasize the belonging community of the employees, the customers, and all the shareholders.
Yeah, thank you. I think that brings up a really good issue of trust, as we'll talk about in this next issue. Is that the external issue number two is the trust and competitive pressure that is being forced on Salesforce as a whole. You can see some numbers here talking about the agent force deals closed. But most importantly, when people look at these numbers, is they want to know that they're clean and trustworthy before they can start trusting the CRM agents. That's leading from this external pressure from competitors who are also switching to these AI models that we've seen so heavily nowadays, especially in this industry and all over the globe in terms of every other industry. I think this has led your firm to create a strong reaction, sort of welcoming the AI in, but at the same time, I think this welcomeness is being looked at a little poorly by the employees who, aren't being benefited as much from the AI because they're not taking home the money that the CEO's taking home. They're looking at how is this going to affect their job and are they safe to work here still? So I think the leadership risk that we need to focus on here is less about the profits of the company as a whole in the big picture as compared to the day to day, the employees, what they're focusing on, and how it's going to affect them.
Absolutely. I
Kind of
mean, at the
added
end of the,
something.
oh, go
Yeah,
for it.
you can. Well, kind of added something on there is that they need to be the employees need to know that it's not implemented just to replace their jobs. It's more implemented in order for them to work alongside almost like another part of the corporate culture where they work alongside this AI to improve efficiency on more monotonous tasks that they will be able to just get done quicker.
Yeah. What I was going to add is when it comes down to it, you are a company. So the profits are extremely important, but keeping your employees happy and making sure your turnover doesn't increase because of the implementation of AI is just as important.
And that kind of goes back to the numbers that you were showing in the beginning. Kind of, they are making a lot more revenue. These employees are getting paid more than ever, but still something is obviously wrong because of the price of the stock.
Yeah. I think that takes us up to the impact on the culture.
As I've kind of mentioned before, Salesforce has historically built its identity around this Ohana, or the idea that the employees, the customers, shareholders, everybody involved is treated like family. However, with Mark Benioff's statement or your statement that he needs or you need less heads, it can show how quickly the language can shift from people belonging to the company to how they may be replaced by the investment that is being made for the future. Employees may start asking, is AI here to actually help me perform better, or is it here to replace the job that I'm doing? As they see people who are doing similar jobs or maybe even more monotonous tasks being replaced. And that uncertainty can create fear and resistance to change, which not only affects the employees and how hard they work, but also the deliverables to your customers and how they receive their product. So the managerial concept behind this is that leaders need to be able to convey this idea effectively, rather than saying, I need less heads in order to kind of say AI will be able to replace some of these monotonous tasks. They need to explain how these employees will be able to work along with AI in order to improve their efficiency on some of these tasks. And
Yeah.
overall, the culture that Salesforce should be trying to create is not humans versus AI. It should be the humans complementing the AI in order to help them be overall more efficient on all tasks in general.
Absolutely. And before we move on, I just want to say something on Mark's behalf here, because I don't think the sentence actually reflects what he believes about the company. I just think it's how fast efficiency that narrative took over the vocabulary in the company. And that's something that happens to all good leaders. And that's just a gap we want to close, not the intention that he has behind it, but rather the language he's using.
Mainly how his idea or how the ideas are communicated to the employees so that they understand that their job's not just going to be replaced, but it will be complemented.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. And I think this overarching idea is the balance between our AI workload and our human workload.
Mm. And that really takes us up to the impact on financials, because the corporate culture does have a long-term impact on our financials. In the short term, however, the lower labor costs, the higher operating margins, strong investor confidence from the money that the investors are seeing back. I mean, that stock price is still down, but the investors are making tons of money off of their dividends at the very least. But there is the morale risk that comes to the company from with the amount of people being laid off and the amount of people being hired on just for the AI roles. And that short term leads up to our long term financial impacts, where we see that I do think that agent force will be renewed and that growth will continue. So I think we'll continue to see a trend of that support staff being laid off in favor of more AI. But I do think the cost of continuing to do so is going to raise. And with less support staff, that customer relationship is going to feel less and less unique. Because AI really only creates value if the savings are invested into the trust with the customer and the outcomes that they see. And that leads us to our recommendations here. Eli, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll take it down. The first point I wanted to really bring up was building an AI first learning culture. I think the most important thing is making sure the employees at the company are acclimatized with the AI and that they know that they're going to be working with it and not against it. I think this is really important in terms of supporting AI certifications for these employees and continuing their training as AI continues to evolve. And then more so, kind of creating these AI experimentation labs and internal innovation programs that will incentivize these employees to work with the AIs on their own time and kind of see how they mesh with the company and what they can do for the company.
Yeah, and moving on to the next recommendation, kind of working along with the AI first learning curve, is being transparent about where this AI should be implemented and how the employees should actually use it. So, explain why these AI changes are occurring, kind of lay out that data for the employees in order for them to not assume that their jobs are just being taken by the AI that's being implemented, but that it should be able to help them, which kind of leads into the future workforce plans, how much more AI will be implemented in the future and where it is kind of going for the future. And finally, kind of just like the AI first learning culture, career development opportunities where they are able to learn alongside with this AI in order to become more efficient in the work that they are doing, and in order for them to kind of build up their job security and build in trust in working with this AI.
Yeah. Before we move on, I think we're underweighing a risk here about the transparency for the future, because obviously that's a good and a net good for the company. But when you tell people 18 months from now that their function they're currently doing is going to be automated, they're not going to take that well. Some people are probably going to leave in the next month. So what we really need to do is build that in without triggering the exit, which is why these career development opportunities and the future workforce plans are so vital with this transparency.
Yeah, very well
And again,
said.
that kind of goes out how the data and the future plans are going to be communicated to these employees, making sure that they don't think, oh yeah, my task will be obsolete in 18 months, like you said, but that they'll be able to work alongside and develop their skills alongside with the AI that is implemented.
All right, so we'll take it to the next point, which is to align our AI success with our company values. And this is where we're seeing the mesh between our AI impact and our corporate culture. So we want to make sure people are understanding that this AI success comes from a point of trust and ethics, and that we're not overreaching, not over pushing the AI onto everyone. And as a whole, we want to make sure that the employees, the C-suite, and our shareholders all come together and they all understand that this is what we are and this is how we're going to move forward. We also want to prove that we are still going to continue to have this human oversight. So that's that sense of job security that we want to hold. And then same thing, trust ethics, responsible AI, it all comes together to enhance our company vision.
I feel like something that should be really stressed to the employees is that human oversight. Kind of, even if some of the AI seems like it may be able to replace a job or something, they need to know that it still needs that human oversight, which will enforce or encourage their employees or the employees.
Mhm. All right. Moving on to the performance metrics. What we want to see out of this is the innovation that for the company, because we do know that moving forward, AI will be such a big deal that not adopting it probably is the wrong move, and that slowing it down even is probably not the wrong move. Or, sorry, it probably is the wrong move, but moving we need to adopt it such that the companies are working with it, which is what leads to our employee learning. We want our employees to be happy to be here. We don't want them to be fearful for their jobs, which would likely decrease the amount of engagement they have with the company in general. And I think by keeping these employees happy, keeping them engaged, will lead to better customer outcomes. I mean, clearly we're already doing great with the amount of revenue you're making, but keeping those employees and making sure that that outcome or those revenues don't drop at all moving forward, which takes us to our expected benefits of what we expect to see if you implement these changes. I think the first thing that you'll notice is that you'll see a higher subscription revenue. I think that improved quality from your employees will lead to happier customers. Our recommendation is not that you slow down on your AI at all. You can, and frankly, you shouldn't, because Agent Force is a $1.2 billion and growing program. It's not a program that can be managed cautiously because it's a franchise. And what we are recommending is that you let the efficiency story, not let the efficiency be the only story you tell internally into the street, to Wall Street. The margin gains are real, but the Ohana premium that you're offering, the togetherness that you offer your employees is a premium, and you can't afford to get rid of that. And we believe that by keeping this Ohana story and focusing more on it as you implement AI will lower your employee turnover and lead to these higher productivity numbers. Now, all we're asking for is a 90-day mandate. You build the measurement, you redesign the workforce transition around it, and see what it tells you. If we're wrong, you spent a quarter and some executive attention. But if we're right and you wait and you don't do it, this is one thing that no competitor is going to be able to copy, because you'll lose your culture as your competitive advantage in the market, because everything else can be bought. But once you lose that, you'll see a sharp decline. Now, we'd like to leave the rest of the time for any questions you may have.